A planned pilot scheme to allow eligible Hong Kong residents in the Greater Bay Area to receive subsidized medical care at a designated hospital. Xiaobao Long visits Hong Kong's technology hub. And Hong Kong records 10 COVID cases with a new mutant strain. Hello and happy Monday. Starting May 10th, eligible Hong Kong residents living in the Greater Bay Area can continue receiving medical consultations at the University of Hong Kong Shenzhen Hospital. Under a pilot scheme being planned by the government, patients will have to pay only 100 yuan for each consultation. Sharon Tang has more.
During the pandemic, when the borders were closed, some patients of the hospital authority could not return to Hong Kong from the mainland for follow-up consultation. Since November 2020, the University of Hong Kong Shenzhen Hospital has been commissioned to provide subsidized follow-up consultations for these patients. Mr. Wong, who has diabetes and lives in Guangzhou, says he has been to the hospital for consultation twice. He thinks the whole process was quite smooth, but the dosage of drugs can vary from what he was prescribed in Hong Kong. Up until February, more than 54,000 people have benefited from the special arrangement that's due to end on May 9th. In view of the positive feedback, authorities suggest that a pilot scheme be launched on May the 10th so that eligible residents can continue receiving medical help from the University of Hong Kong Shenzhen Hospital. What's new about the scheme is that patients would only have to pay 100 yuan for each consultation, and the remainder of the charges would be covered by government subsidies. Each patient would be entitled to a subsidy of 2,000 yuan each year. On Wednesday, the Health Bureau will consult lawmakers on the pilot scheme before seeking approval from the Finance Committee. Lawmaker Rebecca Chan welcomes the scheme, saying it can alleviate pressure on public hospitals in Hong Kong. She added that authorities can consider expanding the scheme to include government-accredited clinics in the Greater Bay Area. As for the dosage issue, Chan thinks authorities can set up hotlines to allay patients' concerns. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Some 80 healthcare workers from the mainland arrived in Hong Kong today on a one-year exchange program. The hospital authorities said these workers can all communicate in Chinese and English, adding that a global recruitment drive is on the way. The first group of medical workers from Guangdong province arrived at noon today via the high-speed rail. Among them, doctors, Chinese medicine experts, as well as 70 nurses with at least 8 years of experience. They will be deployed to hospitals under the hospital authority after receiving theoretical and practical training. Chairman of the hospital authority, Henry Fan, expects that a total of 300 nurses from the mainland will come to Hong Kong within 2 years. He said there have been encouraging results after authorities went to the UK to recruit doctors, adding that another recruitment drive will take place in Australia in June. Director of the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, Xiaobao Long, continued his visit in Hong Kong today. His themes of the day: trade, finance, and technology. Jackie Lin with more.
Day 5 of Xia's trip in Hong Kong. His first stop, the central government offices. There, the Beijing official overseeing Hong Kong affairs engaged in an hour-long meeting with some 30 representatives of local and foreign chambers of commerce. Among those in attendance was Simon Wong, vice president of the Chinese Manufacturers Association.
On
the one country, two systems principle, Wong said Xia told them that Hong Kong can transcend the 50 years unchanged pledge, and the national security law helps along with the SAR's stability and prosperity. Xia later inspected the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and the Monetary Authority before attending a lunch banquet with finance representatives. Then he spent 2 hours visiting the Science Park, accompanied by Secretary for Innovation, Technology and Industry Sun Dong. They toured around the Hong Kong Applied Science and Technology Research Institute. Xia was also introduced a medical robotic system developed in a scientific innovation hub. Next, the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, with some students welcoming his visit.
UC has a lot to offer
for him to see. There are different facilities in UST for example, I like the entrepreneurship center here.
It is quite an important event. After COVID, someone important to visit UST, quite exciting for me.
During Xia's visit to Hong Kong UST, security has been stepped up around the campus. But as you can see around me, students can come and go as usual. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
India has seen a recent surge of COVID cases involving a new mutant strain, Arcturus. The city's pandemic advisor, David Hui, said there are about 10 such infections involving the variant in Hong Kong. Hui said some children may develop keratitis, inflammation of the cornea in the eye, after being infected with Arcturus. He said residents needn't worry too much, as the few cases reported in Hong Kong are not severe and are believed to be imported from India. The expert added currently available oral COVID pills can treat Arcturus. India's surging infection tally, prompted by the strain, has led the country's government to reimpose a mask mandate in hard-hit states. The strain only emerged in India 3 months ago, and so far some 29 countries and regions have reported Arcturus cases. A group of 7 foreign ministers are gathering for talks in the hot spring town of Karuizawa, Japan today. Ahead of the meeting, Japan's foreign minister outlined the issues that are set to be high on the agenda. The dialogue takes place ahead of a G7 leaders summit in Hiroshima next month. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi began today's group of 7 talks with an address highlighting the aims of the gathering. Hayashi said the international community is now at a historical turning point, so the G7 will firmly reject any unilateral attempts to change the status quo by force or Russia's aggression against Ukraine, as well as its threat of use of nuclear weapons. He said by doing so it will demonstrate to the world the G7's strong determination to uphold international order based on the rule of law. Hayashi added he would like to have a frank and in-depth exchange of views on various topics, including the Indo-Pacific, China, North Korea, the Middle East, Central Asia and Africa. He said there will be a broader discussion on cooperation with international partners and on nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation. At a private working dinner on Sunday night, Hayashi urged continued dialogue with China on the many global challenges where participation from Beijing is seen as crucial. Among the Chinese interests that are intertwined with those of the G7 are global trade, finance and climate efforts. Hayashi told ministers that outside nations must continue building a constructive and stable relationship with Beijing while also directly expressing their concerns. The comments come after China conducted military drills in the Strait of Taiwan following a meeting between the island's leader Tsai Ing-wen and US House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in Los Angeles earlier this month. Beijing said the exercises were intended as a serious warning to pro-independence politicians on the island and their foreign supporters. Daniel Rell, TVB News.
Sudan's military is said to be gaining ground over a paramilitary force that is trying to seize power in the vast East African country. The fighting that started Saturday has seen nearly 100 civilians killed, along with an unknown number of combatants on both sides. Matthew Bray reports.
Satellite images from Khartoum show thick black smoke drifting across the capital and a number of pounded government buildings, further evidence of heavy fighting between the main Sudanese military and a paramilitary unit known as the Rapid Support Forces. 2 ministries were apparently hit, including defence, and at the main airport further damage to planes was visible. Fighting has been raging in Khartoum and neighbouring Omdurman and other flashpoints around Sudan. The competing forces apparently have tens of thousands of fighters in Khartoum alone. General Abdel Fattah Burhan, the commander of the armed forces, is trying to end the career of Hamdan Dagalo, the head of the Rapid Support Forces. The two are former allies who jointly orchestrated an October 2021 military coup that derailed Sudan's short-lived transition to democracy. Speaking from Abu Dhabi, former Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok said there should be a return to dialogue between the rival factions, but no foreign intervention. He also suggested a humanitarian corridor into the capital, where a doctors' group say 97 civilians have perished already, with up to 400 injured. No ceasefire appears to be on the cards for now, and eyewitnesses told the Reuters news agency that the army was renewing airstrikes on RSF bases in Omdurman, Khartoum's sister city across the Nile. Fighting was triggered by tension over the RSF's integration into the military. That hasn't happened, and the army has said it will not negotiate with the RSF unless it is dissolved. That also seems way off for now, as the RSF controls other facilities and air bases around the country. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
Another mass shooting in the United States has left at least 4 people dead and 28 others injured. The latest incident happened during a birthday party for a 16-year-old girl in the rural town of Dadeville in Alabama. Police have yet to disclose information about the shooter and have appealed to the public for more information. Nazvi Karim has more.
A bullet hole, one of many, on the window of the Mahogany Masterpiece Dance Studio in Dadeville, Alabama, in America's Deep South. Flags at half-mast and a town of around 3,200 people grieving after a deadly shooting at a Sweet 16 birthday party at around 10:30 p.m. on Saturday night. For the families of the victims, the pain is made worse by unanswered questions. Indeed, even the authorities appear to be scrambling, with the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency appealing to the public for more information.
We're going to do exactly what we need to do to ensure justice is brought to bear for those families.
As yet, nothing is known about the shooter or if any suspect was in custody or the motive. Media reports say the party was stopped briefly when attendees heard someone had a gun. People with guns were asked to leave, and the shooting started shortly after. One of those who did not survive was identified by local media as Philstavius Dowdell, the brother of the 16-year-old girl who was celebrating her birthday at the dance studio. He was a Dadeville High School senior who was committed to a football scholarship at Jacksonville State University. Dowdell's mother was among those hurt in the shooting.
He was just a leader, and as far as his ability, just an electrifying player, but just a special kid, always smiling. Yes sir, no sir, thank you, well respected, and just everything you'd want out of a teammate or a player.
U.S. President Joe Biden said in a statement, "What has our nation come to when children cannot attend a birthday party without fear?" Biden called on Congress to revamp firearms laws, including making gun makers culpable. The U.S. has recorded more than 160 mass shootings so far in 2023, and the Dadeville shooting comes 5 days after a bank employee in Louisville, Kentucky, shot dead 5 colleagues and wounded 9 others. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
Welcome back. The Consumer Council said the aggregate average price of supermarket goods has increased 10% since the pre-pandemic period. Some goods, such as canned food, are 30% more expensive. Mimo Singhai reports.
Global supply chains and logistics were severely damaged by the 3-year-long pandemic, leading to fluctuating grocery prices. While most parts of the world are now in the post-pandemic era, the aggregate average price of some supermarket goods has not yet returned to a normal level. The Consumer Council compared prices of 80 items across 15 food groups, such as canned food and edible oils, that were available on 3 online platforms of Welcome, Eon, and Park and Shop. The Council found the overall prices of the surveyed items increased by 12% in the first quarter of this year than in the same period of 2019, the pre-pandemic time. Among the staple foods group, the price of edible oils in the first quarter of 2023 rose by 8% than the previous year. The other category that saw a steep rise in price is canned food. Canned vegetables and fruit increased by 39%.
We really hope the price will drop, but the trend is not really sure. Because actually, although we have already gone through pandemic to a certain extent, but our economy is not really picking up that fast, and people are still lacking of money.
While this resident said food items are more costly than several years ago, the public cannot do much unless business owners do something. Meanwhile, the watchdog tested 31.5 horsepower window-type air conditioners and discovered all of the inverter models were 27% more energy efficient than non-inverter ones. Moreover, the cooling energy efficiency of the 13 models also varied by referring to the cooling seasonal performance factor values. A higher value means a better energy-saving performance, while the average CSPF value of inverter models was 4.331, the value of fixed capacity models was 3.163.
If you are planning to buy a new air conditioner, probably you have to consider about the inverter type based on the fact that it is getting more popular and also more energy efficient.
The Consumer Council urges the public to use air conditioners sustainably, such as by closing windows and curtains while machines are in use. Mimosa Nai, TVB News.
The Consumer Council received a complaint from a parent saying his 13-year-old son purchased virtual items worth $90,000 in different mobile games in 20 days. After mediation by the Consumer Council, he was eventually given a refund. The council urges the government to consider referencing other jurisdictions and introduce a regulatory mechanism to protect underage consumers. That is the news. Pearl Magazine is up shortly. See you then.